So give yourselves a woo. Woo! Oh, y'all are good. But you gotta get the hands going too. So, okay, will you do it again? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Woo!
Good morning, Lisa. How are you?
Linda, fine. And yourself?
I am doing great. Yeah, we've had, well, as you know, because you're here in Vegas with us, but we've had rain for the last couple of days, which has been so wonderful.
Yes, it wreaked havoc on my greenhouse, but that's okay. We will put it back together.
Oh, no. Oh, gosh. And I know in Kansas City, they've had so much rain. It's like they wish it would just stop for a while, but we have so few times of rain. And yesterday I was out to lunch with my mother, and the server, we were just getting ready to check out, and we weren't by a window, so we had no idea what was going on. And she looked out from the side. She says, "Oh my gosh, it's pouring down rain." And the sun was shining and it was beautiful. I mean, it wasn't like dark clouds, but then it was pouring down these huge, big raindrops in the middle of the sun shining so bright. It was very cool. So I put a bag on my head and went and got the car.
Yeah, I was telling my grandchildren who are here for a week that Grandma doesn't even know where her umbrella is, so we will find it soon.
So so tell us about your trip. So you had the grandkids there for a week or two, something like that?
But before we dive into there, I'm just going to say hello to our ladies. Happy morning there, Karen and Kathy.
Oh, there we go.
And Alicia.
Alicia's on here. Hi, honey.
and others that we can't see.
Right. So any of you that are there that want to say hello. So yeah, and Karen and Kathy. Well, so Alicia, you've always given me permission to share little tips or little things. Our word today is flexible, and we'll get into that. Well, Alicia had one of those days. They got up and their car had been stolen right out of their driveway.
Oh my goodness.
Unbelievable. It's like, you go out and you think you're like in a dream or something. And her daughter's car was broken into and trashed, but they didn't, there wasn't anything in there from the steal, but they literally stole Alicia's car. They did get it back, and the people did not trash it, but they took every single thing in it, including the baby car seat. Strange. So yeah, and it just, makes you feel vulnerable, and it's not a fun way to start your day, right, Alicia? But she handled it so well. I said, boy, you're handling this really well. Oh, good. Thanks, honey. Learn to take deep breaths. That's the thing that her whole life we've always done. Like, when things get just so like you feel like you're going to lose it, you just got to the deep breathing, because sometimes that's just all you can do is take a deep breath. But
that brings us into our word today, which is flexible. So yeah, you got to be flexible.
Yes, so she certainly did yesterday, and I think that happens to all of us very often. Lisa, you and I've talked that I really think I am going to, but I keep talking about it. I'm going to write a book called My Life Interrupted, because I think that is my life. My life is a series of interruptions. So you, somewhere along the line, you kind of have to learn to be flexible, because if you try to just, dig in and you're not going to move, you're going to get pushed over anyway, right?
Well, and I looked at the word. It has many different meanings, but one of them that caught my eye was that to bend without breaking. I'm like, oh, bend without breaking,
Oh, the breaking part, right?
Yeah, avoiding the breaking part.
Oh, and my gosh, I just realized. So, okay, y'all, this is a perfect thing. Today's August 2nd, which means we're supposed to pick our winner for last month. So I'm going to have to flex, because I am just now this minute remembering that.
Yep.
And I hate to say that I am not prepared. I love that, Kathy. I'm flexible as long as you don't change anything.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good one. So anyway, y'all are going to have to flex with me. Next week, we'll pick the winner for the month of July, for all of you who made comments during the month of July. So thank you in advance. I didn't know that I was going to need that word today. So So, Lisa, what are some things that are ways that you've learned about being flexible? I mean, I think as moms, that's one of the
Oh,
top things on the list for sure.
yeah. Well, sometimes I guess what I've learned is that if you aren't flexible, you do break. I mean, because the thing is that if you're just always expecting something to be in a certain way, it will bear on you and stress on you until you have a breakdown. As a parent, there's always things flying, especially like this week with the grandkids that we had, which we had a wonderful time with them. But my littlest one got her finger, well, she was chasing after a ball under the treadmill and decided to turn it on to get the ball out of the treadmill, which tucked it tighter. So she put her hand in there and she got this really bad friction burn. That friction burn basically changed our whole schedule for the week. And so it, I could have been upset, not at her, but I mean at myself or other things, and just let that really consume my whole week. And but we just rode with it and changed the schedule that we had. And basically what we ended up doing was spending the day that we were supposed to be driving home with the girls. My husband took off some time and went and did some stuff, and we had a good time, even though it wasn't how we had planned the week. We ended up making slime instead of doing some of the other activities, so we were throwing, because she could do with her hand, she could do the slime. And she liked that because she sat there and she was like, putting her hand in, and we were talking about the science of how slime is made and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, if you're flexible, you can enjoy the time that you have rather than mourning the loss of the structure, I guess, is how I would feel that I've learned. You can still have fun.
Yeah, yeah, and that was a big one, obviously. And I think sometimes you're right that it is often we do, depending on the situation, we do more in the time, like, well, this is what was supposed to happen, and I really wanted this to happen. It could be a vacation that got interrupted or something. Well, or let's just look at the last couple of years. How much flexibility has the world had to do, and each of us individually and how we fit into that scenario. People who used to go to work every day had to totally flex and learn how to work from home, or those that lost their jobs, and those are big flexible areas that we've been through. And as we're coming out of it, it's certainly not over, and things are never going to be the way they were before. And I think that's a big flexible place right there in our brains and in our minds and our lives right now. I think it's important that we realize if you keep thinking that everything's going to go back to normal and all of that, you're just fooling yourself, because there's no way it can. You just can't take something that expands like a big rubber band all the way out here. It's never going to go back to exactly what it was. So being able to just realize that, okay, so where are we right now, and what are the things and ways that we can flex to still be happy, to still have joy, but do things a different way. Do your business a little differently. The time that you have with your family. I think that's one of the things that's really changed a lot, that we've had a lot of flexibility, and in many cases very good. Back to having dinners together. And of course now most of us are back out again, so it's like, okay, so now I have to decide, how much am I going to actually go out? Am I going to keep half and half, do some in-person stuff, and then still keep with, the whole Zoom and technology ways, because that's been such a blessing to be able to connect with people really across the world that we never really could before. So there's a lot of flexibility going on, I think, right now.
Yeah, I think that lately we have had to learn flexibility. But, I mean, what keeps us from being flexible might be an interesting thought as well. What keeps us from being flexible? And I know that for me, when I'm serving people, I'm looking forward to certain things happening and in a certain way. And I'll get disappointed if it doesn't go that way, and then I don't let myself see the positive side of what's happening because I'm so focused on, well, but it needed to go this way. And so, we can get ourselves into a set of depression, just always expecting things to be a certain way.
And I think we do, we make plans to have them go that way, but really being able to inside ourselves realize that oftentimes they don't, and we can't control the responses of other people. Let's like say if you're serving and you're helping people through something, whatever that might be, how they respond or how quickly they adjust to what you're doing for them, or how you're helping them makes a difference too. And I think too, we have to learn, part of that flexibility, I think, is learning to manage our expectations of other people. Because I think it's easy to expect, oh, I'm going to do this. And, in many ways, it could be, I'm going to do this for your kids or your grandkids, or you're going to do this for the people at work. And you're thinking that this is such a great thing and you're going to do this and they're going to be so happy you did this. And then when that doesn't happen, it's like, okay, now how do you regroup yourself, and be flexible to realize we can't manage other people. It's hard enough to kind of manage ourselves, right?
Yeah, no, that's a very good point, that we cannot control the reaction of other people. Even when I had my grandkids here, each one would react to what we were doing differently. And, one would be like excited and the others would be complaining. And sometimes that was hard to handle, but you just had, like you said, you have to let people, you have to realize that you can't control those type of reactions. And otherwise it's going to really stress you out and cause the situation to spiral out of control too. So.
Absolutely. Oh, hi, Brenda. Good morning. Thanks. So I'd like to know from you ladies out there, is there an area in your life where you find you're not very flexible? Are there certain areas in your life where you're not very flexible? Because I think, again, as women in particular, and many of us wives and mothers, I think probably in some areas within our families, it's harder to be more flexible. But if you have any something you'd like to share about, just areas that you find it harder to be flexible, we had so the whole month of June and July have been a totally flexing, not anything like how I expected or how what I had planned to get done in these last 2 months, and it's out the darn window.
Yeah, I don't think you're the only one in that boat. With all that we've been trying to accomplish with the Focus 7 Academy, all of us are all in the same boat. We've had 2 months where things just kind of got, our schedules and our plans kind of have floated into August and September.
I was like, how did this happen? Because right, and that in particular, because like back in March, things were going like, I said, man, we're going to get this done, and by June this will happen, and by the 1st of August this will happen, and it's just not there. My course that I'm working on is not there. Getting close, sort of, but
yeah,
it's
So
is.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, and sometimes, and it is, I would say in every situation, there could be one, but everyone that I can think of always is outside things that happen that we have to flex around.
Yeah.
In June, we were in Kansas City, as y'all probably, if you may or may not remember, in May, we came back and we came back with the colds or the whatevers that all the grandkids had. And then Bill had this procedure done there. And so he was sick for about 3 weeks into June, which just changes the dynamic here in the house. But in the meantime, my mother was I was supposed to get my mother and bring her up here to take her to Utah to spend June and July with my sister. And so she couldn't come while Bill was sick. And then she got really extremely sick. We're just blessed that she's okay.
That's good.
We just had no idea what was going on with her. So what was happening in the 1st of June supposedly has just been happening here in this last week or so. And so the whole calendar, everything shifted. And I do just often have to just sort of take a deep breath and just say, you just go with the flow. Just like you said, Karen, that is the thing, just releasing it all. It really is just releasing it all and say, all you can do is the best you can do at any moment in time. So you redo the schedule, you look at what can what's the mode, goes back to what you teach, Lisa, about the priorities. What are the priorities? And on mine is my family. So my mother and sister, and then the kids, of course, but how all that comes together, how do I keep them as the priority and work all these other things around? And it'll all come out the way it's supposed to. But in the middle of it, it's easy to get frustrated.
Well, and you bring up another thought, which is that I think flexibility is trusting in God's timing.
Mm-hmm.
If you are putting your values up front, if you are putting your family first, or you have to maybe put your job up front because, you're providing for your family or whatever, that you're having to put that value up at the top and flex around that because of what's happening, then you can trust God that he's going to handle the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen time and time again when I just relax and kind of, like one of our audience said, take deep breaths. And you take a deep breath and you just kind of get a little perspective and you have time to say a prayer, that you can come back and float back into a good situation. It's not always the situation that you had imagined in your head. Just like last week didn't look anything like what I had planned.
Right, absolutely.
And but it all turned out well, and we had good hugs and good times.
So the goal of them coming stayed the same. I mean,
yes.
The bottom line was just having that time together and, loving on each other.
Yeah. It just,
how it came about was different.
Instead of a beautiful clay figurine, it just kind of looked like somebody squished it a little bit. That was okay.
Absolutely.
And all in all, we still created memories and good memories, and the whole time that Ariel, I was having to hold her because her hand was hurting. She's reaching up around me and going, "I love you, Grandma. I love you, Grandma." So those were really good times. It wasn't what I had imagined in how we were playing and doing things, but the flexibility of it, maybe some better times came out of it too, if I trust that.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, going back to what you said a minute ago about just trusting that the Lord has it, God's got this. And that whole thing of the faith piece is a big part of that. Just sometimes the interruptions or the thing that happens is actually him at work in our lives, where it could be that you have a morning plan and you get a phone call out of the blue. And it's important that person, whether it's family or friend, somebody who really needs you at that time, and be able to just, release where you were at that moment and what you were on your way to. If you can. I know we can't always do that because sometimes, there's deadlines, and you say you have to call them back. But sometimes when we can just be flexible in the moment to do what comes in front of us, turn out to be often blessings to either the person that called that just needed to hear your voice, to have your reassurance, or to tell you something exciting that they just, they're bubbling up and they want to share that, and that you're there to do that. And you can, wait 10 more minutes to do that next thing you were going to do. Just trying to be flexible in the moment opens up new opportunities for blessing, oftentimes.
Well, and when before the show, I was looking up scriptures about flexibility. I didn't really see any that I was like, it just hit me. But then as you were talking, I was thinking about the Good Samaritan, which was a story about flexibility. Brenda says, I'd like to say I flex so that I don't break. Yes, that is exactly true.
Yeah.
But when he happens upon the Good Samaritan, I can't imagine that was in his plans and in his schedule. And so he was flexible in his ability to serve and to, care about somebody. He took time to take him to an inn. He took time to pay the bill and everything. And then he took a separate trip to come back and check on it, I think, if I remember the story right. And so, that's a lot of flexibility in his service. And so I think the Lord was trying to tell us that flexibility is okay. And I think sometimes that's just maybe what we need to do, is to give ourselves permission to have flexibility.
Right. To do that, something that wasn't in the plan that just might be a better option.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there's things you have to take care of, like your granddaughter when she hurt her hand. That you have to take care of. But sometimes there are those things that, and I think that's where we really need to pay attention to the prompting of the Spirit. When you sense that God's telling you something, or that you need to make that phone call, or, God brings someone into your mind, to kind of stop a moment to think about what your step could be. Should you reach out and make the phone call, or write a quick card or something? Be flexible within our own schedule, because we're the ones that do it. We do make our schedules, whether they're an official schedule or not. We do spend our time by the choices that we make. And sometimes it's nice to just allow ourselves to make a different choice, when we feel that.
Yeah. Well, and flexibility to give ourselves our own self-care. I think sometimes that's where we squeeze out making our schedule. Sometimes is like we just take the self-care out. Oh, okay, I can keep my schedule on track if I just take out the self-care. The problem is eventually the self-care is going to end up creating a crash on your behalf too. So you have to, and you work faster, in my opinion, when you do take care of your own self. So, to women, give yourself permission to be flexible, to take some self-care time too.
Oh, absolutely. Because at some point it's that being so rigid, we were talking about that when we're so rigid, and if we don't flex with what's happening, we can break, we can have a breakdown. We find ourselves sick, forced into rest, whatever that looks like. Whereas if we would give ourselves permission to take whatever it is, 10, 15 minutes during the day to walk around the block, or go out and sit by the pool, or something that allows us just to mentally release a little bit and relax a little bit. Go take a bubble bath at the end of the day, or whatever that looks like for you, everybody out there. It does recharge. It recharges your battery. So maybe that next thing that's on the list, you can actually do it in a better mindset, maybe quicker. It won't take as long to do. And this really doesn't have any, well, I guess it's sort of flexibility. But I found that if I will do the thing that I most don't want to do, if I do it earlier, I can get that release, and I'm not thinking about it all day. Like, oh man, I got to make this whatever. For one of those that happens is, I know I need to call Cox and talk to them about my bill. Or this is like just silly, but these are part of real life, right? And, you put it off, and it's like, oh, I just don't, I know it's going to be a 30, 45-minute conversation. And you're thinking about why it's so bad, and you really don't want to do it. That I found that if I won't do that, if I'll just say, you know what, that's going to be my first phone call of the day, and get rid of that so I don't have to think about it. Again, I don't know if it's really flexibility, but it came to my mind, and I find that if I will.
No, that actually is a great way to deal with things in your time schedule. That's one of the things I actually teach, is that when you put those top 5 things on your list that I teach people to put, I tell them, put the hardest one at the top, get that out of the way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so what that allows you to do, though, is to be flexible the rest of the day. Because
Yeah, that makes sense.
because flexibility can sometimes be an excuse to put away the hard thing.
Mm-hmm,
Oh,
mm-hmm.
I'll flex around this phone call. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow.
Right. I don't really have to do it today, right?
Yeah. And
And
so
then the end of the
flexibility
week
can
comes.
have its negative things when we're flexing around and procrastinating. So
Yeah,
it's
the
actually,
real word is right.
yeah. So sometimes, doing that thing that we don't like right up front, that's a great point.
Yeah, and I think I learned that mostly, Karen, I'm great at procrastinating. Well, I have a better word for it. I call it creative avoidance.
Yes, there you go. Well, and frankly, you can use procrastination to be on time. You can use planned procrastination. So Karen, there's good traits in procrastination.
You see, and that's being flexible to look at things from a different perspective.
There you go.
Oh, I so much in my younger days I did that. I would just put off the thing that I didn't want to do until I absolutely couldn't. And that thing had grown so big in my mind that when I realized if I would just take care of it immediately, I didn't have to live with that angst, of realizing that it was
Well,
coming.
and you brought up another thought, which is that how rigid are we sometimes in our beliefs and in our thinking? Sometimes flexibility is necessary to learn new things or to learn from a new perspective or to have a paradigm shift. Our mind needs to be as flexible, anchored to the spirit, but flexible in its ability to open up to truth. Because sometimes we really put our mind, this is how it is, and we don't even allow new truth, well, not new truths, but I mean truth to be taught, because we're so rigid on what we have decided is where things are. So flexibility and understanding is another thing. Be open-minded and easily enticed in that way, and then you can always check it against the spirit. But
yes, I think that's a big one, Lisa, because if we just look at where we are in our world right now, there's so much, I don't even know what to call it, but just
chaos.
and
Yeah. Chaos.
chaos. Yeah, and I think that if we will allow ourselves to at least consider another point of view, and again, we're not talking about our faith, we're solid in our faith and stuff, but there are different ways of looking at things, and mostly because other people have had different life experiences. And so how their perspective of a certain thing is different because of where they are and what they've lived through. And sometimes if we'll just step back a little bit and listen and say, well, explain it to me. It's like, I'm not saying try to convince me. I just want explain to me why you feel this way or how you feel. Then I can have the time. So that's something for me to think about. Being open enough to at least listen to a different point of view and see, because maybe there's a truth in there that God's trying to teach us, then it can be from big things to small things. But I think being open-minded and being flexible to that maybe we don't know it all. I mean, it is possible.
Well, and upcoming on the horizon, there's going to be some changes in economies and different things. This flexibility of the mind is going to come in, and how do you survive massive changes when we're creatures of habit, and that, in my opinion, goes back to just trusting in the spirit, trusting our Heavenly Father that He's got it, but opening your mind so that you're not pushing against it so much and testing to get information in there, new information.
And that when these different when big things happen, and they do, they do, because 2.5 years ago when the whole pandemic started, that caused a major shift in how you flexed through that and how you kept your mind open and how to work through it all. And there easily could be, and there's still going to be more. I'm not saying there's going to be another pandemic. I'm not forecasting anything except that I do believe major change, like you said, Lisa, is going to be coming. And how are we going to go through that? Being open.
It's 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah. My computer tells me on the hour. So
Oh, like, wait a second. Are you talking to me?
no, my computer.
The voice of God speaking through the
It is 8 o'clock.
Oh gosh, what a great subject. And Lisa's the one that picked the word today. Sometimes I pick it, sometimes she picks it. If we have a guest, we always give them the option to pick it. And when I sent her a message last night, I said, so what do you think about the word today? And she said, she gave me 3 choices, but one of them was flexible. And I thought that is perfect, because I do think it is important for us. And if we think about it, we can allow ourselves to be flexible. So when that next thing comes up, maybe your mind will click back to, okay, now I can be flexible and go with the flow, or I can be rigid and stand here like the oak tree and, let it, it just gives us, we try to push against it. It's like, I love the phrase of embrace change, because when we embrace the change, we can come out better through the various things that happen. But when we are so rigid and don't, we're pushing back too hard, then that's what causes us, takes our joy or causes us heartache sometimes.
Yeah. And on the other hand, you can decide that there are boundaries. It's not that flexibility is the rule. It's just we have to work flexibility in. Like with my grandkids, they wanted to snuggle all night. So I would tell them about 9:30 or so, Grandma's gonna go have her quiet time. For a little bit. Why are you going to have quiet time? And, you could say, well, you could be flexible, you could do that, but there is the right to have rigidity too, and boundaries. So it's a balance between flexibility and keeping things in order. If you had all flexibility, then you'd have chaos. And if you had all rules, then you have no charity, in my opinion, and mercy. So it's finding that balance.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and then it takes you right back to when you were talking before about that self-care. It's like making sure, because if you don't take your quiet time, then how are you going to be able to handle these kids, and what all they need to do and all of their needs at the other time. So
right.
It's working that in. So, well, what a great discussion this morning. Thank you all that made some comments out there. I know there's some others that will be showing up, and when we're simulcasting on all 3 of the Facebooks, on my personal page, the speaker page, and the Fun Fearless page. Often when I go back, there's comments being made on the other pages that we're not seeing. So I always go back and take a look at that. So thank you, everybody, for making your comments. Nice to see everyone. And thank you for being here. And if you're listening later, thank you for taking the time to stop your day and taking a listen. And hopefully you'll find some things within our discussion that maybe can help you get through another day. Maybe, today may be a day when, you might have to do a little flexing. And chances are you will, because I think every day there's going to be a little flexing that goes on. So any last comment, Lisa, before we sign off?
Just that I wanted to tell everybody, I think that they do a great job of this for the most part. And then I think that when I look at other women, I'm amazed at all of the things they handle and what they do. So I just, a shout out today that I think that everybody is, all of our women ladies and the people that we network and our friends are just amazing.
Absolutely. So yay, kudos there. It is. And the way that you give to others, because every one of you that are on here, and so many of you that I really personally know, and we see you out there giving yourself to others, how you share your time, and just the things you do. it's very admirable. And I just applaud you for those things, and just being strong women of faith, just handling every day and all the things that you do. So thank you so much for being a part of our broadcast this morning. We know you have many, many, many choices of where you could be. And I want to invite you in 1 hour, actually 54 minutes, our pop-up networking. So if you want to network and actually be on where you can talk with us back and forth, I love the networking things because we actually get to have conversation. I love that. So the pop-up networking will be happening at 9 o'clock Pacific time. So figure out your time zone from there and come join us. I'm really shocked. I got a message that, and I don't know if it's true, but I got a message that's saying there's 22 people signed up for the pop-up that's happening at 9 o'clock. And I think, what?
Wow.
It's like, whoa. I was like, is that right? So I'm thinking, did they make a mistake? Are they just teasing me or what? So I can't wait to check out 9 o'clock and see you there. And it'll be a great time. So we're just trying this new thing.
Make sure you've got the link in the video. So
say what again?
Make sure you've got the link for the pop-up in our video.
Like this one here. Put it in here. It's on the page, but I can get it real quick and I'll post it in here if somebody needs that. Because yes, you probably do. All right. So is it? And then you can just click and then you'll know right where to go. So here is for the pop-up. And actually, y'all probably know. I use the same one every time. So once you have this, just save it, because it will always be the same one. So I try to make it easy. I've had people say, well, you should set up a different Zoom for everyone. It's like, are you kidding? I'd be too confused. I wouldn't know where to go myself. So anyway, so join us in an hour and we'll have actual back and forth conversation. It'll be great. Thank you for being here. Remember that life is not a matter of chance. It is a matter of choice. Hallelujah. I love that. So go out and make it a great week, and be flexible where you need to be. Don't have to be flexible every time, but as Lisa said, be flexible when you need to be. Take that deep breath and go out and make it a fabulous week. We will see you next Tuesday.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. Take care. And